We are two bold lifelong friends, Mur in bustling London town and Mishi, that's me, in sunny California, with a bicontinental podcast on sustainable living, self-care, and the gloriously messy middle of life. So, we like to start with a small pleasures check-in before we get to our topic this week, which is sustainable fashion. And why don't you go first, Mur? What small pleasure did you have this week?
Small pleasure this week. I felt like I was working a lot this week, and it was hard for me to even find time to get out of the house on certain days. But one of the times when I was stuck in the house all day, one of my cats, both of my cats are about 2 years old, and they've had kittenish energy, and they're really sweet, but they're definitely solitary creatures. But now that they're getting to be slightly more older adults, two in cat years, they're at least old enough to vote, I suppose. They're getting a little more calm. And so this week I was really happy because one of my cats, Vinyl, climbed on my lap. I think she's becoming a lap cat. So she actually sat on my lap willingly, and she sat there for like a really long time, and she let me pet her for a really long time, and she's the softest of all cats. And that was my tiny pleasure of the week, just having this beautiful, nice bonding ritual with a feline creature.
That sounds so sweet. Did she purr a lot?
Oh, yeah. That was when we found them. They're rescue cats, and they were sitting in a cage together. And as soon as they got into our arms, they both started purring like crazy. And we were like, these are the cats for us. They were about 4 or 5 months old at the time. They were so cute, and they're still so cute, but now they're a little older and lazier and still very purry.
Aww. Aww. I love it when cats purr on you.
It's the best. What about you? What was your tiny pleasure this week?
Well, I had a number of pleasurable moments this week. Some big pleasures, some smaller pleasures. But yeah, I was thinking, what should I share today? I was thinking about, I was working, we were just talking earlier about our logo for our podcast, and I have started doing a prototype in AI with generative AI, although now we might go in another hand-drawn direction. But anyway, I was generating all these strange planety creatures with pretty eyes for it, and I showed some of them to my son, Manga Monster, and he thought it was so funny. He couldn't stop laughing, and then he had to give me a hug afterward because he felt sorry for me that that was what I made.
Oh no, so he was laughing at you, not because it was so wonderful.
Because one of them, because I think AI is really good. If I could think of the art movement that it's closest to, I would say it's surrealism. Is that it makes things look realistic but combines them in these really kind of uncanny, disturbing ways. So yeah, this little character that it created looked like this really scary planet that was this really frightening Disney character. So
well, that gave you a good laugh with the manga monster. So
yeah, so that was my small pleasure moment this week.
That's a good one.
So yeah, why don't we get started? And I'm gonna start by asking you, how did you get interested in sustainable fashion?
Sustainable fashion, I've always been a little bit vaguely aware of it, ever since sustainability has been a thing that we all talk about. But I didn't really give it careful thought until really recently. So in my everyday life, I work as a researcher, and I've been hired by a big European fashion company to do some research on how their users feel about them producing sustainability lifestyle content. So I was talking to all these people throughout Europe who what their impressions were and how they would feel if this big company started producing this content. And would that be greenwashing? Would they appreciate it? Would they believe it? What would make it feel more authentic and sincere versus greenwashing? And their answers were what you might expect, which is they would want to see that whatever claims there were are backed up by real commitments, and that those have to be about the planet and the people. So making sure that we're treating the planet well with the kinds of resources we're using, and that these companies that are producing these textiles and these clothes are treating the people well, the workers. They had really good
So can
points.
I just interrupt here to clarify a little bit? So is this, you had mentioned a few months ago you had taken a trip to Berlin for some work. Is this part of that
Yeah, it's
research that you were doing? So you're talking to Germans, or which Europeans are you talking
yeah.
to?
So for this study, I spoke to a few Germans and a few French people and a couple of people from Sweden. I think those were the main countries represented, and I just felt a little bit of solidarity with them in being interested in sustainability and yet wanting to also be in fashion at the same time, and not exactly knowing what's how to strike the balance between wanting to wear fashionable clothes and wanting to be nice to the world and the people in it. So that was really what kind of sparked my interest. That was the beginning of it for me. And so then it led me down a whole rabbit hole of trying to understand, well, what's wrong with fashion, and how can we do it right?
Yeah, I always had this idea that, well, I grew up in California, and but I had German relatives abroad, and when I would visit them, my German grandmother was even, later in her 80s, she was so fashionable and into fashion. And I always thought of Europeans as slightly more fashion conscious than Americans, but maybe it's not necessarily a good thing if people are, you know, spending more on fashion that you just throw away or that is not sustainable.
So
So I think
I
that's a really interesting topic.
it is. I haven't noticed like a huge difference between Europe and America in my research, but what I've really noticed is a difference in the timeline. So your grandmother, who would probably be like 100 or something now if she was still with us, she grew up in a time when fashion was just fashion. There was no fast fashion. But these companies started popping up starting in the 80s, and they got really going in the 2000s. Like, I think H&M or Zara, they might have been amongst the first. But really, it was in the 2000s, maybe around the 2010s or so, when companies like Shein really got to be popular. And so fast fashion is just amplifying the problems that fashion itself already had. But the problem is that in the last, I want to say 15, 20 years, we have doubled our consumption. We humans, especially in the global north, have doubled our consumption of fashion and then just get rid of them straight away. So a lot of people in a big survey that was recent said that after two wears, an article of clothing is old. They'll just
Wow.
discard it. Yeah. So loads of people are discarding their clothes after barely any wears, and sometimes even with the price tag still attached. It's just this industry has increased this consumption, this feeling that you need to keep consuming, and they're targeting young people, like especially on TikTok. TikTok and Shein go hand in hand and really are just promoting more and more consumption, getting these hauls. So, oh, there's a
Oh,
cat behind me.
small pleasure. There's a little
And
adorable
that's
cat
vinyl for
behind
you.
you.
Isn't she the cutest? What a nice kitty.
Oh, is that the one you were talking about who sat
She
on your
is. She's
lap?
the one who's become my lap cat now. Hi,
Oh,
Vinyl. Anyway, so with fast fashion, it's just that this problem, a lot of problems that have always existed in fashion have become so much more significant because there's just so much more of it and the turnaround is way quicker. So, yeah, that's what's going on with fast fashion.
so do people like younger people? They just buy the clothes, and I'm guessing it's more women than men. They buy the clothes and they wear it a few times, and then they just throw it in the garbage, or what happens to it? So how does it get to, I've seen these pictures of like, you know, junkyards in Chile or wherever.
That's right. There's a desert in Chile that is, you can see from space just these mountains of clothes, of old discarded clothes. And it is young people. It's ironic that it's young people, Gen Z, who's more conscious of the environment, and yet they're acting so hypocritically by consuming so much of this fast fashion. So I think there's just a disconnect maybe when we think of pollution and plastics, because the clothes on our backs don't feel or look like plastic, that doesn't look like a plastic bag. We don't think of it as plastic. But honestly, one of the hugest shocks to me from doing this research is that plastic clothes isn't necessarily the enemy. This
It's
blew
not?
my mind. No, I mean, yes, it is in some ways, of course, but there's ways to have plastic clothes in a responsible way. And some of the natural fibers that I always thought were the right choices are actually pretty bad. So this was a shocker to me. Cotton is
Oh.
quite bad in a lot of ways. Cotton is a really thirsty agricultural crop, so it uses tons of water. It's also needing way more pesticides, like pound for pound, than other crops. So it's really poisonous. And the dyes that you use on it are often really toxic as well. Plus, it's associated, well, historically with slave labor, which doesn't really give it a good background. But the problem is that even today it's associated with slave labor and with child labor. This was like a
Where did they
huge
grow
problem.
cotton? Because I know, historically it was grown in the South in the United States with slave
Yeah.
labor, but
So
where's it grown these days?
in the global south, in the hot climates, is where it grows really well. And a few years ago, there was a big expose in Uzbekistan where there was child slave labor that was really very sadly involved. And that, I think, from what I've seen of the news, it looks like it's being addressed. But you know that if it's happening there, it's happening nearby. So the whole cotton industry is a problem. So there's actually more responsible fibers that we can use. Organic cotton, recycled cotton, that's awesome. If you can find that, you should do that. Hemp, linen, those are good choices. But wool, maybe, you're definitely, the sheep are still okay, but in some places it's not done very ethically. So then you end up with like these, what I would have thought were plastic fibers and not good for you, but some of them are actually quite sustainable. A company, I forget what it's called, but what they make is Tencel, Tencel,
Uh-huh.
lyocell, and another form of Tencel. Those are considered to be amongst the best. So there's also recycled polyester, PET. It's the exact same stuff that your like water bottles are made out of, but it's reformulated to be your clothing. Those are
Wow.
okay. But honestly, the best thing is to not get new stuff at all. Best thing is to just get used clothes and to wear your clothes to death.
So I remember when I was younger, when I was the age of, these people that are spending so much money on clothes, that I was into thrift stores. And, well, first of all, even in high school, because I had almost no money then, I would go to garage sales and find these cool, like, patterned shirts from the 60s in the garage sales, and
Yeah.
then sew them into new weird stuff. Like I had this pillowcase dress that I sewed together that was my great creation of that time. But so how do you remember when you were younger doing that kind of shopping, or
Oh,
what kind of
definitely. Yeah, I remember the exact places I used to go. There was a place called Aardvarks right on Melrose Avenue in LA, and that was my favorite weekend getaway when I was a teenager. But luckily, kids are still using used clothes. So, like, Vinted is really, really popular, at least here in Europe, and I think it's big in America too. There are a number, like, I think Depop and eBay, and your local, like, Craigslist, perhaps. There's lots of places where people are selling their clothes. And that is an excellent thing to do, because even if you don't want to wear your clothes again, finding somebody who would appreciate it and wear it, that's awesome. However, giving it to the Goodwill, the Salvation Army, may not be the life that you were hoping to give it. It's probably just going to end up in landfill or being incinerated. There's a statistic I read that every minute, no, I'm sorry, every second, it's the equivalent to a whole garbage truck full of clothes being dumped or
Oh, wow.
incinerated.
So they
Every
don't
second.
use all the clothes that you give them.
No, not at all. Like, apparently, very small percentage actually get through to being sold, to a person who's going to wear it again. Most of it gets baled up into these giant bales and then shipped off to a country in the global south where they'll buy a whole bale and hope that within that, some of it'll be sellable. I was watching a video of some guy in Ghana who was opening up this bale, and out of the 200 or so articles of clothing in it, 7 of them were salvageable. And the rest of it was stuff that people had stopped off at Goodwill thinking somebody's going to make use of this, and they were gross. They were not salvageable. They couldn't do anything with them. So at that point, at best, if it gets into the hand of like a circular economy where they're trying to recycle it, it might get shredded and used as stuffing for like couches or something like that. There's ways of plaiting it into new yarn, but those are rare. More often than not, it gets added to landfill or incinerated, and that is an unfortunate end.
Yeah, that that isn't ideal for what you're thinking when you drop your clothes off at the Goodwill. I just, by the way, this shirt I'm wearing is one of my finds from the Goodwill recently,
I love it.
and yeah, I was really happy with
I'm
that.
wearing a sweater that I found on the street. So here in this neighborhood in London, people leave stuff on the street all the time, and it's good stuff. I've gotten loads of good clothes and furniture and costumes and all sorts of wonderful things that people have just left on the street. So if you think someone's going to get life out of it, that's the thing. I think before I was saying some people will just throw away clothes after only 2 wears. They're hoping, in an ideal world, what they're calculating is 30 wears per article of clothing. But your goal should be more like hundreds and hundreds of wears, up to a point. Because if it is made of plastic, you have to worry about microplastics getting into. So every time you wash your clothes, you're releasing loads of microfibers, and if those are plastic, that's landing in the ocean. It's a pollution. But luckily, there are things you can do. You can outfit your clothes dryer and your washer with like filters, or just insert things into it. So I didn't know about this before, but I'm going to get
Yeah.
myself one of these things. Let me get you the name of the one that I think sounds pretty cool. It's there's a Guppy Friend, which is like a bag. It's like a lingerie bag, except that it's a bag for all your laundry, and it's designed to capture all the plastics. And then there's something called a Cora Ball, which I don't exactly know how it works yet, but it seems like it just gathers all of the microplastics into this little coil, and then you have to clean it occasionally. Another great resource that I found that I really want everyone to know about is a website or an app called Good On You. It's goodonyou.eco, but you can download the app, and I've found that to be a tremendous resource. Not only does it have like really great information about all these questions of like what is fast fashion and stuff, but it has a database of a lot of brands and stores, and you can look them up and see how they rate them according to their treatment of the earth and their treatment of people. And they bring the receipts. They tell you where they're getting this information from. So it's not just somebody saying like, I like that brand, you should use it. They'll tell you why they rate something well or poorly. So I
That sounds
recommend,
really
Good
good.
On
Good
You.
on you. Yeah, there's so many factors. I mean, there's, health factors and microplastics and wellness, and then there's also, wanting to be sustainable
Yeah,
and not pollute the wellness of our planet. So
exactly.
it's a lot to wrap your head around, especially, yeah. when you haven't been thinking about any of this stuff at all, and you've just been like, "Oh, that looks really cute," and that's a good
And
bargain.
it's always a good bargain. It's so cheap. They've made these clothes to be, as cheap as a latte. So why not spring for it? When they say it's fast fashion, they really mean fast. So like these companies like Shein and other ones similar are turning out fashion so fast. Like within days of seeing it on the runway, you're seeing it in their TikTok. And that's a problem from start to finish throughout the whole supply chain. First, they're ripping off designers, and that's not cool. Any artist will tell you that they don't want to be stolen, what their designs were. Second, there's all of the toxic chemicals, all of the products that they're using, all of the planet's resources that they're using to make these textiles. And then there's the workers putting the clothes together, who are often barely being paid, if at all, or just having to work terrible hours. And then there's the shipping. And then there's you consuming it and then throwing it away again and consuming the next thing. So the whole cycle needs to change. And while fast fashion is the hugest part of it, all fashion needs to be aware of it now. This is the toxic chemicals, the poor treatment of people is a problem in fashion, whether it's fast or slow. And so I think it's up to us to hold these companies accountable and to make sure that they're treating the earth and their people responsibly.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just reaching back to my preteen sort of self or teen self when I was first got interested in fashion, and thinking, how can you approach it in a way that, I think that's especially when people first start to get really interested, but what can you do that, or as a parent of teens, what can you do to encourage them to be more sustainable? Do you have any thoughts about that?
It's tough because they want to be in style and they want the latest thing. But I do recommend teaching them the joy of thrifting, getting them onto Vinted or whatever other trendy app that the kids are liking, but it's used clothes. Have them host a clothing swap party, which is loads of fun. They can have all their friends over and they can trade clothes that isn't good for them anymore, but their friends might like. My daughter, Godzilla, is really tall, so she outgrows things and then ends up giving them to her friends, who are mostly all shorter than her. And then she gets stuff from their older sisters. So sometimes that works really well.
That sounds really fun, a clothing swap party. I
It
think
is
like
fun.
we've just sort of informally done that with each other sometimes. Do you remember when we were roommates and we used to just share our wardrobe back in
That was the
college?
best. And it was so convenient that we wore the same size shoes.
Yeah, you used to wear my combat boots all the time and some of my vintage finds from the 50s, and
Yeah.
and I would wear your cool clothes from LA that you had bought.
And there
Yeah.
were some things of mine that you look better in, and maybe some things of yours that I look better in, and it was like weird sometimes to see my clothes on your body. Like, what am I doing over there?
We just did even though now I'm in my 50s, we did something like that with some of my friends who just turned 50, and she said she's in her fashion 50s now. And she, for her birthday, she wanted to dress us up in all these clothes that she had designed with, her husband is from Ghana, and they have a dressmaker there who designed all these really cool African dresses with these pretty patterns on them, and she dressed us up in them. And
How fun.
yeah, it was really fun.
Another thing is to learn some basic sewing. I love sewing as a hobby, so for me, it's not that hard to do. But for everyone, learn how to darn your socks. Learn how to sew on a button. It's not rocket surgery. You don't have to be a seamstress or, create things. Just learn to repair your clothes and wear it to
Yeah.
death. And then the thing is, eventually you do have to make that choice of like, when is this so worn that it's time to retire it. I just recently threw out a pair of leggings, which were obviously made of plastic. I mean, often activewear is one of the things that is really hard to find in sustainable fibers. But I wore it forever and until it was at the point where clearly it was shedding more microplastic than it was keeping me covered. And I thought I was doing less harm to the environment to throw it away in one piece than to keep on shedding all of these microfibers. So, we do our best.
Yeah, there's a point where when I lived in Asia, my clothes didn't last as long because it was really hot tropical climate, and just, yeah, I went through them faster. There's a point where you have to give things up. But I was also gonna, echo back about the sewing. I think that's a really great idea, especially if you have teenagers who you can get them to take a sewing class at a local makerspace or something like that.
Yeah.
Which they started, like, I know when they start. I don't know if people are familiar with maker spaces, but in the States, or at least in California, we have them. They're like these communal spaces where people can go and learn how to do stuff. And it started out more like 3D printers and or rent out some tools, but then they realize, oh yeah, the more feminine things that people do, like sewing, are also, that's a skill, that's a craft that you can share that skill at a makerspace, and you can do workshops on teaching young people how to sew. So
that is
yeah.
such a cool idea. And often at these maker spaces, they'll have industrial sewing machines, so you can sew some really impressive thick fabrics, have big projects that you can't do on your home sewing machine.
Do they have maker spaces in the UK?
They do, not as often, but yes, they exist. Yeah, and sewing is fun. I mean, like I said, it's a hobby of mine, so I've taught Godzilla how to sew at least a little bit, and she's taken some of my clothes, which is sadly too small for me at this point, but still way too big for her, and she's adapted it and made herself new clothes out of my old clothes. So how great to give it new life.
Yeah.
Another thing I would say is learn how to wash your clothes well. Don't be afraid of re-wearing clothes unless it's really stinky. But like a lot of clothes, you don't have to wash very often, because every time you wash it, you are releasing microplastics and you're breaking down the fabric. Wash your blacks inside out. Re-dye them if they get faded. That's not the end of the world. Just learn how to keep on wearing your clothes until you've worn it out.
That makes me think that of when I realized that I needed to get a new deodorant, because I like to buy like all kinds of hippie home products, and I had this deodorant that just basically didn't work at all, though it smelled nice, and so my clothes would get dirty after just wearing them once. But so I found a better hippie deodorant, basically, that actually worked.
What's your recommendation? Because
it's I don't recall the brand right now, because it's hard, because they're always changing the brands, and so I have to like keep doing this research over and over again.
Yeah, as our listeners may or may not know, I don't have really very much of a sense of smell, and so it's always dependent on other people to tell me when I stink. But I try to remember to use deodorant, and occasionally Godzilla will tell me when I haven't.
Yeah, ever since when you had that accident in Italy where the moped
right.
hit you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was 22 years old and I landed on my head on a cobblestone road in Florence. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
well, yeah, you have all your other senses, and yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, don't be afraid of being a little stinky hippie like me, and don't wash your clothes so often. If you do wash your clothes, wash it on cold. Put it in one of those eco bags or one of those eco balls that I was telling you about. Line dry it. Here in London, which is ridiculous since it's always rainy here, but nobody has dryers here. We hang dry our clothes, and that's way better for the environment too. And better for your clothes. They'll last a lot longer.
I don't know why, like, a lot of HOAs in the States, they don't let people hang up clothes, and it's considered shameful to hang up your clothes, that it makes you look poor or something, but it's actually so much better for the environment.
And sometimes your clothes don't even need a wash. If they are a little stinky, you just need a little fresh air and sunlight on it, and it freshens it right up. I know you seem skeptical, but it's
I
true.
don't know. I would prefer to wash it, but yeah, this is a lot of new information to process that about the washing and the microplastics and all that. So,
Yeah, the
yeah.
microplastics are tough because, like I was saying, on the one hand, it's sometimes a better choice than the natural fibers, which was my biggest surprise. But on the other hand, you still have to be protective when you're taking care of it, that you're not releasing too many microplastics. You know, one thing that I learned about these fibers that are plastic fibers is like fleece is the worst because they're loose, so they're naturally going to fall right off. Whereas a tight weave, you're going to lose less fibers.
Oh.
So that made me also really bummed out to think that all of these crunchy hippies on hikes are wearing fleece, and that's really bad for the environment.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Was this in the app you were talking about? The Do Good app or
Yeah,
do
it's good on ya, good on
Good on
you.
ya? Okay.
I it may have been from an article in there. I found so much information, both the database and the articles, but I also researched outside of that app, so I don't remember specifically where I got that little bit.
Okay. So, more personal question. I know you like to design clothes and you have sewn some of your own clothes. Can you share a little bit about that?
It's been a while since I've done it, and I really need to get right back on it again. At this point, I just have a pile of things that need mending or alteration, and then I'm looking for my next big project. But I would say the one. All right, I'll tell you two sewing stories. Today, I am wearing something that I sewed, and it's my underwear. And I am proud to tell you that I made this out of fabric that was just cut-offs from another project that had no reason to, I'd used enough fabric to make the dress that I was making, and I had a little bit of extra fabric to go. So I made it into my underwear, and I look really cute under my clothes.
Wow. I never heard of anyone making their own underwear. That's awesome.
Underwear is, I recommend it very much as a really good starter sewing project because, first of all, you can make it out of all your old t-shirts. So if you don't know what to do with your old t-shirts or your old leggings or whatever, it's a great project. Second of all, it's small. You can do it really fast. You can do it in a matter of like an hour or two. And it's not that hard. It's hardly any pieces. So it's a really good beginner project. The only thing a little tricky of it is that you're dealing with knit fabric and elastic, which is a little fussy if you're a beginner, but I still recommend it as a good learning project. It's like a hobby. You can give it to your friends as, Christmas
How
presents.
do you find the patterns to do something like that?
For something like underwear, I bet you can get loads of them for free online easily. But I decided to buy a paper pattern because I knew I was going to do a lot of it and I enjoy it. And so I got a pattern from Tilly and the Buttons, who's a really good beginner pattern company. Tilly was on the Great British Sewing Bee, which I don't know if you get that in America, but the Great British Bake Off.
Yeah.
So it follows the same process, except that it's a bunch of people sewing. And
Oh,
one of their early seasons, Tilly was I don't think she won that year, but she was on the show, and she's since started up this company, which has fantastic beginner sewing patterns. So if you're interested in getting started there, I think that's a good place to start.
cool.
And my
You
underwear
said there was a
pattern.
second sewing
Oh,
project? Yeah.
yeah. The other sewing project that I think I'm the most proud of was a beautiful dress that I made for Godzilla. I went to, oh, I just forgot the name of it. A really famous oh my God, I can picture it. Department store here in London that is known for their fabrics, and they have purple bag, and it's driving me crazy. I can't think of it. And in Cruella de Vil, it's where Emma Stone worked.
I
And
didn't watch that movie.
okay, it's a super famous department store here in London,
Uh-huh.
and they have a very famous fabric department. And I went there when they had a sale, and I got this gorgeous cotton lawn fabric. Lawn is like a very fine weave, and it's soft, almost like silk. It's a really fine, lightweight cotton woven material. And I got all this gorgeous on sale material that was like the cutoffs that they hadn't sold before. So they were small amounts. But at the time, Godzilla was a child, so she was small. And that was great. So I made her this gorgeous dress out of this fancy, beautiful cotton lawn. And she looked beautiful in it. And
Oh.
she wore it to death because she was into dresses then. And then she outgrew it. And that was the end of that.
Aw. I want to see a picture of this dress. I don't think I've
Oh,
seen it.
I'll send you one because I'm so proud of it. It's my best project I
How
ever
old
made.
was she?
Probably 7 or 8 or something.
Okay, how cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things I missed having a boy that I didn't, get to sew dresses. Although I could have sewn him clothes still, but anyway.
Well, now you can sew yourself a bunch of underwear.
I could, yeah. I like that idea. It's
In fact, my favorite fabric to use for a lot of my underwear was some of Godzilla's outgrown clothes. It gave her a little bit of the creeps, I have to say, I remember that dress and now it's on your butt, but it works.
okay. So, let's see, what else did I want to ask you about? Has living in London influenced you fashion-wise, and how sustainable do you think London is compared to, or the UK is compared to the US, for example?
I don't know if London itself, I mean, London has this great history of fashion with whatever the name of that department store is that I can't think of right now, and with Savile Row and with
It's not
Kings
Harrods,
Road,
is it? All I can think of is the...
Harrods
Okay,
is famous, but no, hold
yeah.
on. I'm going to do a little quick web search right now because it's driving me crazy. Purple department store, London. Liberty.
Oh,
Liberty,
okay.
London. Okay. Anywho, so we have Liberty, which is really famous from the 60s. Savile Row is for men's tailored fashion. We have Kings Road, which is where the punk rock movement came from, and like Vivienne Westwood and all that. There's a long history
Which
of
was
fashion
like, punk
here.
rock was sort of just using, stuff from thrift stores probably. And
Exactly.
I mean,
So-
I remember being a punk rocker when I was a teenager, had a brief
And-
phase.
And here in London, it was like really important. You had the mods versus the rockers, and you had the Teddy Boys. The Teddy Boys were especially interesting because they were girls too. They were taking old Edwardian clothes that they found in thrift shops, but this is in the 60s, so they were still able to find Edwardian clothes, and
Wow.
that was what they were wearing as their like kind of punk-ish kind of aesthetic. So there's lots going on here, but I would say it doesn't affect me so much. What affects me living here in this area, I live in an area that has a lot of people from Africa and the Caribbean. And so we have a lot of African fabric shops in this town.
Ooh.
And a lot of women walking around in their beautiful church outfits made out of these African fabrics, but styled like almost like Victorian or Edwardian dresses with like bustles and flounces and things. I think that is because actually of the history of when they made this style. They had been brought to England and they saw these Victorian styles, but they had their own African fabric. And that's still kind of the style going on. It's really cool. So
That's
I
sort
bought
of
some...
like the style at the party we had for my friend's 50 party that the dresses were like, yeah, these beautiful fabrics with lots of like flounces and poofy
Ruffles
parts.
and
Yeah,
and
but
some of
almost
it's really
like
tailored.
sculpted, like not in places you would necessarily expect. And my friend said that in Ghana, people dress up a lot for church, and
Yeah.
that when they were here, they were just when yeah, her relatives were here in Davis, they were just like, "Oh my God, people look so terrible in church."
Because you go here and you see people wearing these gorgeous outfits like that. But I feel like I would be appropriating too much if I wore that actual outfit. And yet I want to support my local fabric stores. And these fabrics are gorgeous. And so I have bought some of that fabric and then I've sewn it into more Western styles. So like Godzilla and I sewed us matching shorts one year out of like this really wonderful, flamboyant, bright blue and orange fabric. And so that's been my main influence. You know, and then just living in this neighborhood where, like I said, people will leave free stuff out on the street. We'll have, like, I guess quarterly or so, there will be this one local place has a sale where you can buy things by the kilo. And so if you get a bunch of, like, lightweight silky scarves, you can get tons of them. But if you get a pair of jeans, you know, that weighs a lot more.
That's so cool. I found some really cool stuff like also in my travels, like in New York one time in this apartment building, I found this silk blouse that I just loved. And
In
it
the
was just
apartment building? Like, just
well,
waiting for you?
it was just like in the hallway just there.
New York is magic.
And what else was I gonna say? Oh, like rewinding back to our conversation a little earlier, you were talking about the different scenes in London where people would find Edwardian clothes. I remember when I lived in San Francisco and I was in this goth phase, and I would shop vintage stores, and I found like this Victorian dress that I could fit into because I was really thin then. And it was this long Victorian dress that I would wear when I was totally goth, and that was really fun.
That is so cool. I remember, I still remember some of my thrift shop clothes that I wish I still had. There was a dress that was from the 1920s that I had had this beautiful pattern. It was like a chiffon fabric and like horse head kind of pattern. And it was so flattering on me. It was beautiful. And I just wore it to death, and it was torn up and I couldn't salvage it. And at the time I didn't know how to sew. If I still had that dress, I would use it to make a pattern and make more just like it. But alas, 'twas not to be.
I remember our mutual friend SJ when we lived in LA. She was in this phase where she would only wear patterns from the 40s, and then she would like buy these older patterns in fabric stores somehow. Or where did she find them? Maybe thrift stores, and
Must
then
have
get
been.
like new clothes made with these old patterns, which is also a really cool idea.
So cool. Yeah. Knowing how to sew is very helpful. But like I said, you know, even just knowing the basics on how to repair your own clothes can get you really, really far.
Yeah, that is true.
So
How
yeah,
to darn.
sustainability. I guess my number one recommendation is to get this Good On You app. And you know, I'm not affiliated with them. They're not giving me any money, but I think that what they do is really fantastic and informative. I would recommend that. And then my other recommendation would be to outfit your laundry machine with one of these microplastic collectors.
That sounds like a great set of recommendations to follow, and I'm excited to check out the app and learn more about the fabrics that are in my clothes, and just have some guidance when I do, on those rare occasions when I do purchase new clothes, know what I should be looking for. So yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome. Hey, should we do our usual closing ritual of setting an intention for the week?
That sounds good.
All right. Do you have one in mind?
I'm going to think of one while you say yours.
All right, I'm going to think of mine really quickly then. All right. So this coming week is my last full week of working at my current contract gig. And then I'm going to, after that, have a whole lot of free time. So my intention for this week is to be very productive and as clear in my messaging as I can.
Okay, that sounds good. What I want to do is I had gotten kind of busy with a lot of really fun things that I'm doing, like I'm building a new Brazil level in my nutrition game and app Fruity, and I'm having so much fun with it, but I want to remember to stay mindful and present and enjoy the present moment and not get too caught up in the exciting, fun work that I do. I missed an appointment last week because I totally spaced on it because I was working. So anyway, that's my
Do you
intention.
think are our intentions at odds with each other? Like mine is to be really productive and yours is to be mindful and to not get too wrapped up in your work. How can we balance ourselves when we feel like we're on opposite sides?
I think, well, the other thing I thought of is I just need, because you know how you get those little reminders about meetings that are coming up, and I just ignore it sometimes if I'm really caught up in what I'm doing.
Definitely.
So I was like, okay, I need to set myself an alarm, like an actual alarm sometimes, and then so that could be my alternate intention when I do really want to, focus on work. But I don't know. I think just mindfulness, that's sort of like something that you can do even while you're working. Take a moment and reconnect. If it's just drinking a cup of tea in between in a break or something like that, and you can be really mindful of that tea and enjoy it.
All right, I'm going to update my intention for the week that I'm going to be really productive by being really mindful of my where I put my attention. So
Okay.
sometimes my attention will be deliberately put on my work that I need to be productive about, and sometimes my attention will be deliberately put on my, inner peace or whatever it is that my dishes. I don't know.
Because somehow we still wash dishes, even though,
Yeah.
yes, we have dishwashers, or yes.
Petting my cat.
Oh, that was so cute that Vinyl came twice in this
Yeah.
episode. Yeah.
She's abandoned.
I don't know if
us
you
now.
saw her the second time, but she was
She was still
was
behind
walking
me.
around back there.
Such a cutie. The other one, Floof, keeps a bit more to herself, but occasionally she'll jump right up onto my desk, and then you'll see her tail go under my nose as I'm in the middle of a video. So we have that to look forward to.
Nice.
All right.
Okay.
And with that, that's the end of this week's Hot Mama's Cool Planet. If you enjoyed today's conversation, share it with a friend. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a review. It really helps more people find the show.
Bye.
Ta-da! Bye.